Hello and welcome you all to Daily Sun's 2025-26 Budget Explainer video. We have with us guest Mr. Musafizur Rahman Sohel, former Senior Vice President of BASIS, Bangladesh Association of Software and Information Services. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are a major part of the ICT sector, and this year's budget had a few things regarding the ICT sector. So I'll start off with the interim government setting up a proposed budget of around 17.32 billion Dhaka for the ICT sector, which is around 29% lower than previous year. How do you think this would impact the growth in the ICT sector, especially the sector is being considered for a few years as one of the rising sectors in our country? How do you think this budget would impact the ICT sector?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me. At first, we need to remember that this budget was a bit challenging for the new government because there are some inheritance things. So considering everything, so we need to think practically. Whatever they have done, I believe they have tried their best. But seeing the budget, what our finance advisor has proposed today, so our ICT budget, especially as you have mentioned, there is I think a certain percentage of reduction in this thing. So it will be challenging in many ways because you see, every day we are sort of embracing technology. So in this age, so if we cut down budget on these technology aspects, then we will be suffering for sure. So this is one aspect. But another thing I would be, suggesting to look into more details on how these budgets are allocated and used. Because the main challenge we have seen in the past that, you have budgets, you have allocations, everything on paper. But in reality, how these things are being used, how things are being utilized, there is no check and balance. So I would love to see that these things are in place now. Number two, there is very crucial thing that as an entrepreneur, as an IT entrepreneur, I would be looking forward to see that what is there in this budget for the future. Like today we are talking about AI, machine learning, blah, blah, all those things. So have we done anything on artificial intelligence in this budget? That is a question that we might need to ask ourselves. I believe there is nothing yet in this budget, but I would have liked to see that in this budget there is an allocation, whatever the amount is, for AI and forward-stick things.
So as you're suggesting, there is a lack of vision for the ICT sector in this proposed budget. You probably would have thinking how countries like USA or even neighboring countries like India are trying to improve on ICT sector quite significantly. In those aspects, we might be falling a little short. So having a proper aspect of these things is quite important. That's what you're...
Yeah, of course. Let me give you one example. If we talk about budget allocation for AI, if we consider India, our neighboring country, they have a budget allocation for AI in the last fiscal year was 173 crore rupee.
Oh, wow.
But in this year's budget, they have increased this to 2,000 crore rupee.
Huge.
Almost 1,000% is hike.
Increment, yes.
So let's forget about India. This is a big country. If we go to Africa, a country like Kenya, they have allocated a budget of $1 billion US dollar for next 5 years, particularly for artificial intelligence. So considering all those things, we could have in this budget taken a forwarding approach. Okay, so this is the founding stone that we are laying. Okay, say for next 5 years or 10 years. So this is how we want to plan. So maybe a tiny bit of amount, but this could have given us a futuristic roadmap that yes, this is how we want to embrace the technology. We want to build a new Bangladesh in terms of technology.
So in short, the budget might be a little lower than last year's. Rather than it increasing, you were expecting maybe a little bit of clarification or transparency in how these money is spent in the ICT sector, and maybe some future readiness for this sector. These two things could have been worked upon in this exact budget.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Adding on to this, staying inside the ICT sector itself, we have also noticed that e-commerce platforms will be getting an additional VAT being slapped on their existing proposed rate, that is 5%. I believe it's going to be increased to 15%.
15%, yeah.
So, do you think this strategy will hinder the growth for the e-commerce sector in our country, especially given the fact that our e-commerce sector is somewhat policed in some ways, and then there is also an informal big e-commerce sector that also exists? How do you think it would impact both the sides?
Thank you. So, I mean, before coming here, so I was discussing this particular thing in another forum. So, we were wondering exactly what is the reason behind this. Is it like, I mean, they are thinking that there is a big chunk of amount, the sales is going on, so by, increasing this VAT, NBR will be earning a lot. Is it the real cause, or I don't know. I mean, this was the thing that we were discussing. So, if I take this thing in a different angle perspective, so let's assume, so what do we actually want to achieve? So today if the number is X, right? So government could have done in a different way, that they could have, encouraged this digital trade to make it 10 times bigger, 10x. And by doing that, they could have, encouraged digital payment more lucrative. Like now, most of the transactions are done by cash of delivery things. So this is how actually NBR, if they want to track also, they hardly can track the right thing. But if they would have promoted this thing like, digital payment through, Bcash or through those cards, then they could have easily traced the transaction number, the actual figures and everything. And they could have easily incentivized these transactions.
Instead of increasing the VAT amount, they could have made things more digital.
Absolutely.
Especially in the payments sector itself, or the e-commerce sector. I believe that would have boosted revenue a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I mean, if you look around, all the countries have gone in that direction. Okay. This is not the direction. That would have been the direction.
Encouraging more.
By encouraging more, you are creating a bigger circle of your transactions and networks, and that is how you can do many things then. Right. But at this moment, I don't think this is the right thing to do.
It's sort of like discouraging people to be part of the e-commerce sector a little bit. Can we say it like that, or?
I mean, definitely it will hinder. No? I mean, if as a seller and as a buyer, both of them will be seeing their interest.
Of course.
Right. So, if I look straight, definitely it will hinder in both of their cases. But had it been in a different way that I was discussing, it could have been much bigger, arena for us in terms of digital.
Or maybe bringing in the informal e-commerce sector into the light, where
Absolutely.
they can be part of the formal e-commerce sector.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, for doing that, you should have fostered them. You should have nurtured them. You should have incentivized them to, come into the big scenario.
Creating bigger opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is how it should have been done.
Okay. Still staying in the ICT sector development part, one of the biggest aspects for the ICT sector is the startup industry itself as well. This time they have allocated Dhaka 1 billion for startups, right, with a high focus on young entrepreneurs. One of the problems which we have been facing for the last few years is the allocation of these startup budgets, which were sort of like channeled through political affiliations. Do you think this fund will be properly utilized this year?
Well, I mean, you have your, in the question there is already an answer.
You have already,
right?
I believe.
Okay, so
when I asked you about the budget being lower, you also mentioned transparency being a very important part. Also for the e-commerce platforms, you also were mentioning making it as much transparent and making payment gateways more accessible for everyone. You also feel for this as well?
Yeah, I mean, for a startup, there is another thing. See, Bangladesh Bank has already allocated 15 billion Dhaka for a startup thing. Do you know that? I believe you know that, right? So, what is the percentage of that amount being already used?
Okay.
So that is the question that we need to ask ourselves. So if that percentage is 10%, that means we have consumed 10%. Why not the 90%, the remaining 90%, why is still,
There.
left there? So we need to ask that concern.
And
answer
why
first.
is it not being utilized?
Absolutely. The main challenge is that allocation is not the issue. Main challenge, how we would be utilizing this, how we are developing the ecosystem, how we are, enticing youths or enticing startups to, get the benefits from this fund, and how we will be, by creating a nice ecosystem and creating our financial sector, especially banks and others, to be a part of this thing. Otherwise, this thing will not work.
I'll ask you one last question. How do you think, after seeing the proposed budget that has been given, how do you think, what advice should you give to the people who are part of this ICT sector? How do you want them to prepare themselves for this upcoming year, and how to navigate this current budget that has been proposed?
Okay, so here are two different aspects. One aspect is that, living on the, present, that yes, this is the thing that we are facing, these are the challenges, how to overcome this, how to address this. So this is one aspect. This aspect will always be there, no issue. For last 25 years, I'm in this industry. Every year we have to face the same scenario. What are the challenges, this, that. But sitting in 2025, we need to look ahead. So I will be, requesting, and I always talk to my fellow entrepreneurs, new bloods, that you need to look ahead, exactly what we should do. And it is our duty, I feel, we should be talking to government officials, we should be talking to Bangladesh Bank officials, we should be talking to business people, how we can create an ecosystem for ICT growth, considering AI, fourth industrial revolution and everything. So what would be our plan for next 10 years?
How does Bangladesh prepare itself?
Exactly. Where we want to see our Bangladesh in next 5 years, in next 10 years. We need to learn from others, how other developing nations are doing and where we are lagging behind. In terms of artificial intelligence penetration, we are nowhere in the scenario. Trust me. So now I'll be, urging everyone to look to the future and think about what we can do, and with the help of government. It is our duty to, help government, because, they should not be knowing everything. It is the experts in different sectors, they should be going ahead with their ideas, with their views to the government and guide them. Okay, see, these are the things we need to, do. So this is how I think we should be moving ahead.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here and providing an extensive analysis for the ICT sector based on the proposed budget of this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Viewers, thank you for being with us. Keep watching Daily Sun for getting more business and analysis updates for Bangladesh. Thank you.
For more updates, follow us on Facebook, subscribe our YouTube channel, get the latest update on www.daily-sun.com.